This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson.
Hello, yes, this is your host, Harry Wilkinson, and welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. And apologies if you've been trying to tune in and hearing some difficulty in the audio. Had some technical problems this morning, so we're a little late getting going. But we do have a good show for you today. Of course, this is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks, events, happenings in the world of politics, international news, technology, the environment. We take a look at it all, and we take a look at it from a spiritual perspective, from a higher perspective, from a sense of our oneness, our connectedness, and from the sense of who and what we really are and how we are creating everything in our lives, down to the smallest detail. Yeah, I mean, everything. So on today's show, we're going to talk about how the human brain has been discovered to be wired for intuition. We're also going to talk about how certain drugs that have been being used for depression, and if you're someone who has someone in their family or you yourself is suffering with depression, this may be very important for you to hear about how scientists are now discovering that these drugs may not only not help with depression, it may add to it. So we're going to take a look at that. And we're going to take a look at the situation in Greece. We're going to talk about that. And we'll give you a movie as part of our weekly or bi-weekly movie experience for consciousness raising. We talk about spiritual movies. And so we'll talk about one of those, and we'll give you a yoga pose as well. So lots of stuff to talk about today. But first I wanted to start with something I came across, because as I mentioned, I always talk about how this show looks at things from a spiritual perspective, and I'm often asked what that means, and I often have to spend quite a bit of time at the beginning of the show just kind of explaining that and explaining how it's different from taking a religious perspective or promoting a particular religion. So I came across this. This is from Madison Taylor. Madison Taylor has a website called the Daily OM, dailyom.com, in which she does daily meditations, daily affirmations, things of that nature. It's not always her. Sometimes she shares work from other people, but this one was particularly meaningful to me and really kind of sums up my perspective and my approach as far as this show and spirituality is concerned. And it's called Life is an Illusion, Playing Your Part. Having the wisdom to know that life is but a dream does not mean that we ignore living. So that's that idea that we are creating everything because everything is a dream, and that our truest real reality, we are beyond the struggles and sufferings and so forth that we create in our game playing here on this planet. So here's what Madison Taylor had to say. She says, as children, most of us sang that mesmerizing, wistful lullaby that ends with the words, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. This is a classic example of a deep, sophisticated truth hiding like an underground stream in an unlikely place. It winds its way through our minds like a riddle or Zen koan, coming up when we least expect it and asking that we consider its meaning. Many gurus and philosophers agree with this mysterious observation, saying that this world we perceive as real is actually an illusion, not unlike a film being projected on a screen. Most of us are so involved in the projection that we don't understand it for what it is. We are completely caught up in the illusion, imagining that we are in a life and death struggle and taking it very seriously. The enlightened few, on the other hand, live their lives in the light of the awareness that what most of us perceive as reality is passing fancy. As a result, they behave with detachment, compassion, and wisdom, while the rest of us struggle and writhe upon the stage in the play of our lives. Having the wisdom to know that life is but a dream does not mean that we ignore it or don't do our best with the twists and turns of our fates. Rather, like an actor who plays his role fully, even as he or she knows it's only a role, we engage in the unfolding drama, but with a little more freedom because we know that this is not the totality of who we are. And life is more of an improvisation than it is like a play whose lines have already been written, whose end is already known. Like an improvisationist, we have choices to make, and the more we embrace the illusionary quality of the performance, the lighter we can be on the planet, on others, and on ourselves. We can truly play with the shadows cast by the light of the projector, fully engaging without getting bogged down. And that's it. That's what I mean by looking at things from a spiritual perspective. It's taking that step back, that step of, well, you can call it detachment, but it's more of a raising, I guess, of consciousness in a way, and an awareness that while we're playing this game, there's something beyond it. There's something above it. And that gives us more wisdom, greater strength to go back in and continue playing the game, of course, but with a new awareness, with a new understanding of what it's all about. And by the way, these, things that she's saying and I'm saying are not just, mystical ideas. They are now backed by solid science, in the fact that what, and you'll see this in my film, Spirituality in Film, A Shamanic Journey, where I talk about the fact that in quantum physics we now know that our particles on this planet blink on and off. They're like flashing photons, which are very similar to the images that flash on a screen at 24 frames per second. These are individual images followed by darkness. But they go by so rapidly on the screen that it gives us the illusion of movement and sound. And we ourselves, as human beings, are flashing photons that flash like 24 frames a second. So we are actually living movies in a way. And we also know through quantum physics that, what we give our attention to is what often gets created. So there's a lot of conjunction of meeting in the middle between science as it now is and the new scientific perspective that is emerging since the verification of the what they call the God particle, or the Higgs boson particle, which now gives us an entirely different framework as to how the universe actually works. And before, previous to this, we had a view of the world, or the scientific worldview, that was based on atoms, and now we have a worldview that is based on particles that are ever changing and fluid. So as our science evolves and almost catches up with our, I guess you could call it ancient knowledge or awareness, we begin to really have a new perspective on the world that can be appreciated at different levels now. People can actually look at the world the way gurus and mystics have looked at it for centuries and understand it in a whole new way. It's a very exciting time. And it's only going to, evolve as we continue. So we're going to talk about some turning points in our world that, we've been seeing. And I've been talking about for the past couple of episodes here. And certainly actually been talking about this for since 2012, since I've been on the air. And I've mentioned the astrological alignment that many people have been talking about, the square of the planet Uranus and Pluto, and what that has meant over the past 3 years since 2012. And what it's meant, as I've mentioned, is a revolution of sorts, upheaval, if you will, social upheaval. And we've seen that. We've seen it in so many ways. And we're still seeing now the effects of this. I mean, that astrological alignment set things in motion, but now we are dealing with the things that have been set into motion. So that's why we're seeing things like the Confederate flag coming down all over the country in the South. After 50 or more years of it being something that you couldn't even talk about, that you just had to accept. Why we're seeing turning points on the acceptance of gay marriage across the country. And you have the Supreme Court finally giving their thumbs up to it. And you have this awareness of policing in states and cities where minorities are being perhaps subjected to very overly violent, overly aggressive policing techniques. So we have this, beginning awareness of these things. These incidents keep coming up. So this is the result of that astrological alignment, and we're seeing things changing in an awful lot of ways. And one of the things that's heartening to me now, and we're going to talk about Greece in a minute and how that fits into the whole thing. But besides the gay marriage issue, besides the Confederate flag issue, which was really the catalyst of that, was the actions of one Dylan Roof in South Carolina and his murder of 9 people. What I'm also seeing now, and part of that, besides just the Confederate flag that is now becoming something that is people are taking action on, we seem to be finally talking about guns and gun control and making progress in that area now. Of course, you may remember after the shootings in Newtown, there was an outcry and a very strong attempt from the President Obama, to promote stronger laws about guns. And no movement was able to be done. It was something that he was very frustrated about. And much of that has been attributed to the NRA and the NRA's influence in politics, and the fact that there are people who are very pro-gun, who are afraid, I think, that they will not be able to have their guns, and their guns will be taken away by the government, and so on and so forth. But for many, many years, gun control was something that you just couldn't talk about in politics if you were running for office. And really, since in the 2000 election, when Al Gore was defeated finally in the election, although he wasn't completely defeated, it was really more of a tie. But in any case, one of the things that Mr. Bill Clinton, our former president, wrote in his biography was that he felt that part of the reason there wasn't a greater turnout for Al Gore was because of his strong stance, and the stance that they had taken in 1995 on banning assault weapons. That ban, by the way, has since expired, and nobody has taken up the mantle to reinstate it. But politicians have been, Democratic politicians have been very unwilling to get into that fight and get into that discussion. But now Hillary Clinton, who is, as sure you know by now, launching her presidential campaign for 2016, and in her speech, a recent stump speech, she talked about toughening the nation's gun laws, and that's something that's very different from what Democrats have been doing. Basically based on this fear of alienating firearm owners and the NRA. But she's talking about, fighting the good fight, if you will, against the NRA, which is something that certainly a lot of her base likes to hear, and a lot of people who were heartbroken and have been heartbroken at tragedy after tragedy happening are quite excited about. Now there's all kinds of political machinations being talked about because of Hillary has a very strong challenge from another political hopeful. His name is Bernie Sanders, of course, and he is a very populist, charismatic kind of character who has more of a appeal to a lot of the left and what they want to see happen, and how they felt. Many who felt that they were not well served in some ways during the Obama administration are now looking to Bernie Sanders as being someone who could really bring some of the progressive values back into the political world. And but in any case, I digress. Well, the machinations that they're talking about are the fact that Bernie Sanders, as progressive as he is, comes from a pro-gun state and has in the past supported gun laws that protect gun owners and gun manufacturers. So some are saying that this is her way of carving out a niche in the desire to appeal to what seems to be an increasingly an increasing move to the left, at least among Democrats and even some, I think, independents. So it will be interesting to see what happened. But back to the Dylann Roof situation and why that ties into the gun situation is that it was revealed on Friday that this boy, Roof, was only able to purchase a gun because the FBI's background check system had lapsed. This is a boy or young man, if you will, who had been arrested in February for a felony charge. I think it involved in narcotics. Possession of narcotics. And he admitted to a drug crime, and that should have disqualified him from buying a gun. However, it wasn't properly entered in the databases, and the records were not kept up to date, so he was able to fly under the radar, if you will, and purchase this gun. And so now this is something that has really stunned the FBI and sort of triggered a mea culpa from them, as well as a call for review of these existing laws and the strengthening of these laws. So this is part of, I think, where Hillary Clinton is coming from in her speech. There have been so many of these situations: Virginia Tech, Columbine, the school shootings, the shooting in Colorado at the movie theater where Dark Knight Rises was premiering. There's been countless, way too many. And as I always say on these programs, when we have these situations, they come back over and over again. We create them. We create these scenarios, as I say, to learn something. Not just to learn something, but to really understand who and what we are. So we'll continue to have these situations until we reach a point where it's no longer something that we are playing a game about. It just naturally happens. The same way the gay marriage thing is just happening. The same way the Confederate flag thing is just happening. We reach a turning point. We reach a point where it's not something we need to play around with anymore. It's just something that we accept. And then it just happens. It's for whatever reasons we need to continue to have these situations come up, and we need to go into them, and we need to take the energy from them and remind ourselves who and what we are, and that eventually this will change too. All right, so now let's move on to another news story here. We're going to talk about Greece for a while. Now, you may recall, Greece has been a bit of a roller coaster these past few days and weeks. Basically, Greece has been going through, terrible, terrible financial problems. They've had to borrow money from the Eurozone, and the Eurozone wants to be paid back. But besides just being paid back, they want assurances from Athens and Greece. They want to control. They want Greece to control things like pensions and raising taxes and initiating austerity programs that the Greek people find untenable. And so last weekend, in the face of the Eurozone demanding that these austerity measures be taken, or they would not lend any more money to Greece, the Greek people had a vote, had a referendum, and they basically said, no, we won't accept those terms for the loan. And so then all of the discussion was, well, now there's going to be terrible financial problems, and Greece will have to leave the Eurozone and go back to using the drachma. And then, in a bizarre turnaround, which has me scratching my head, just 2 days ago, the Greek Parliament voted for these to present to the Eurozone these measures that are the same sort of measures that the Greek people just voted against the previous weekend. But they are bringing this now to the table. There are talks with Germany's Angela Merkel going on as we speak. And, it is a situation where we have a very changing economy. We have a unsustainable, I think, way of doing business, which is why we are having these issues, why we are going to continue to have these issues, why we have things like income disparity going on. There is this evolution going on, and one of the things that seems to be hardest in it is getting people to embrace the change that's going on. And we have these moments like we had in 2008 when we had this economic collapse go on, and we found out what's been going on in the banking sector. We found out, just how egregious some of these and far-reaching some of these economic policies have been. And we have moments when we can change these things. We didn't, to any great degree, in 2008. There have been surface changes, of course, and Obama has been very good at sort of playing both ends and getting some changes done, in the banking sector. But the kind of change that's needed, the kind of change that's coming, just isn't being embraced, and that's because of fear. It's because of the fear that it's of the total change that it's going to mean. So it's probably going to have to actually take a sort of complete crumbling of these structures before we stop trying to duct tape them back together again and embrace a new way of doing things. That's my take on it. What we're seeing in Greece, I think, is the beginning. We've also seen a lot of really not healthy news in the Chinese stock market, which has took a huge tumble this past week. So, this upheaval, this change, this revolution has to do with money too, and it's not over, it's just beginning. But, one of the things they're talking about is the exit of Greece from the Eurozone and their return to the drachma. And there is probably at some point going to have to be this change, and it will mean perhaps a brief collapse, some brief losses, and then a rebuilding of things. The wisdom, the current wisdom is that if Greece were to adopt a new drachma, Greek households and businesses would start to receive income in this new currency, which would collapse in value relative to the euro. So it wouldn't be as valuable as the euro. But the debts to the ECB of these households and businesses would almost certainly still be in euros. So with their income collapsing in real terms, they would be unable to keep up the payments on the debt. and the ECB would face colossal losses, perhaps close to £50 billion. And then there's also the worry that if Greece leaves the Eurozone, it will be a threat to the single currency of the euro. And investors would start betting on which member nation would next run into difficulties paying debts. And, this is probably what is going to happen. That's my prediction, is that, slowly but surely this is going to crumble, this Eurozone idea. But in any case, I want to go back to, this was an article I talked about in 2012, but it definitely bears repeating, because Greece is still going through the same things that it was going through 3 years ago. But this is something that the Greek people have done, and it's this kind of ingenuity that will help the Greeks to rebuild it, and help everybody to rebuild a new kind of economy. In the demonstrations they have had against the social situation they're in, with this devastating austerity. In a hilly suburb of northern Athens, they started a local garden initiative. This suburb is called Marouzi, and the mayor of Marouzi transformed land from a derelict dumping ground into small allotments for 40 families who were having severe economic difficulties. And he turned these into small farms. And this is establishing a lifeline for the people in this community. What they're doing is creating gardens. And this Marouzi allotment project is one of a growing number of examples in Greece where people have pretty much given up asking for help from outside, whether from their government or the euro, and instead, from a local community standpoint, they are taking action to feed themselves. And this is something they call a social supermarket, where fruits and vegetables are grown and passed on into these supermarkets. And they allow low-income families to shop at very low prices. And that money is then used to provide the poorest with goods for free, and help them with gas and electric bills. And this is the kind of thing that's happening, or has been happening around Greece. And of course, it doesn't get a lot of mention because they're too busy talking about the Eurozone and all of those sorts of things. But this very nice article on the BBC website, even though it is 3 years old, it's certainly worth mentioning. And this is the kind of thing that has to and will happen. This people power mentality. Now, of course, it's slow going, but these community initiatives are, huge rays of light and inspiration. And it's what's needed if we're going to, help each other change this situation. So that is my take on the Greece situation, and we'll talk more about that as things progress. So now we are running out of time, unfortunately, so we won't be able to get to this week to the article on the human brain, but we'll get to it next week. But for now, let me just give you one movie to take a look at that I think might help you in spiritual consciousness. And it's interestingly, it's the Lego Movie. released last year. It's this wonderful, wonderful take on, and it works on a number of different levels. The theme song, "Everything Is Awesome," is this incredible embrace of just everything in the world that is created. Among the themes are themes of really connecting to the greatness within that we all share, learning to embrace your master builder, the dynamic of fear of change versus stability. There's so much in this so-called kids movie that is so inspiring and so joyful that I'm sure that you will find something worthwhile in this movie that maybe will support you as you continue on in your spiritual path and exploration. So that's all for today's show. Again, apologies for the rough start. Hopefully next week will be better. Have a wonderful week.